Hey, welcome back everyone. This is Uncle Frank, and I am not a financial advisor, nor is any of the content to be construed as financial advice. This channel is for entertainment purposes only. Wow, guys, what an amazing week. I hope you don't think all the excitement's over because it's only just begun. Let's recap with the Wall Street breakfast. One of the most pivotal weeks of the year turned out to be records galore for Wall Street. The benchmark S&P 500 took its tally of all-time closing highs to a half century for 2024, while also smashing past the 6,000 point level in a historic first. And if that weren't enough, the index posted its best weekly advance in just over a year. Meanwhile, the venerable Dow Jones notched its 41st and 42nd record close of the year, while also taking out the 44,000 point level for the first time ever. The event of the week and possibly of the year was the culmination of the U.S. presidential election on Tuesday. By the early hours of Wednesday, former President Donald Trump had secured the 270 electoral votes needed to win against Democratic opponent Vice President Kamala Harris. The GOP also won the Senate. While the House remains undecided, a red sweep seems most likely. The so-called Trump trade gripped markets, with the S&P 500 and the Dow on Wednesday eventually notching their best post-election intraday climbs ever. The latter blue chip index popped more than 1,500 points. On Thursday, the spotlight shifted to the Fed Reserve interest rate decision of the year. The central bank delivered a 25 basis point rate cut as widely expected, following which Chair Jay Powell said both the labor market and inflation were normalizing. For the week, the S&P soared 4.7%, while the Nasdaq jumped 5.7%. The Dow climbed 4.6%, but CBOE Volatility Index, the VIX, lost 31.7% to finish at 1494. Let's review weekly movement. All the S&P 500 sectors were green last week, but which ones perform best? Consumer discretionary led the way at 7.6% for the week. That's AMC Entertainment sector, by the way, which lost 5.4% over the past 5 days, while Cinemark added 5.56. Consumer discretionary was followed by energy, gaining 6.2%, industrials added 5.9%, financials 5.5%, and then information technology close behind for 5.4%. Round Hill's Magnificent 7 ETF, which tracks Apple, Alphabet, Microsoft, Amazon, Meta, Tesla, and Nvidia, hit fresh record highs on both Thursday and Friday. Under commodities, crude oil West Texas added 1.4% to finish the week at 70.44 a barrel. Gold shed 2.1% to finish at 2691.7 an ounce. The 10-year Treasury yield lost 0.2 basis points to end at 4.305. Under crypto, Bitcoin added 10.3% for the week, Ethereum 19.2%, and XRP added 7.4%. Top S&P 500 gainers, Axon Enterprise added 42% for the week, Palantir 39%, and Tesla 29%. Top losers on Wall Street remained Adam Aron and Tony DeNaro. Stick to selling wedding gowns, Cupcake. On a side note, when I research an individual stock, I always check which sector it belongs to and what direction that chart is heading for that sector. I don't like fighting downtrending sectors because on Wall Street, sometimes the baby gets thrown out with the bathwater. Let the trend be your friend. This chart says it all regarding Tesla and the election. Tesla soars. Mag 7 stocks rise following Trump election win. Here's hoping Bill Gates got smoked for betting against Elon Musk. Now, I'm aware many of you were hoping for a black or white swan event, especially you AMC shareholders, but fear not. There are plenty of upcoming events that could produce an event like that. We're not out of the woods by a country mile. Trump won't be inaugurated until January 20th, which is 72 days away. There's plenty of crazy shit that can go down before then. Just listen up to what's ahead. Monday, 11/11 is Veterans Day. The stock market will be open, but the bond market and banks will be closed. Thank you for your service. 11 Fed Reserve characters have speaking engagements for this week. On Wednesday, November 13th, 8:30 a.m. Eastern, we'll get Consumer Price Index, CPI. On Thursday, the 14th, 8:30 a.m., initial jobless claims, but more importantly, PPI, Producer Price Index. Then on Friday, the 15th, 8:30 a.m., U.S. retail sales. Now, Bill Wang of Archegos will be sentenced November 20th for fraud, market manipulation, and racketeering conspiracy. He was convicted in July following a 2-month trial that captivated Wall Street. He faces a maximum of 20 years in prison on each count. Then Thursday, November 21st of next week, 8:30 a.m., be watching for initial jobless claims. Now in December, we have GameStop earnings unconfirmed for the 4th. GME's calls usually suck, but something tells me this one may have some fireworks. The last Fed meeting for the year on the 12th and 13th. Did you hear that? The last possible rate decision for this year falls on Friday the 13th. The final quadruple witching day is the 20th, the following Friday. Now let's cover some other things we're hurtling towards that could be interesting. At the time of this recording on Saturday, 1 p.m. per Reuters, Republicans are on the brink of clinching U.S. House control. With votes still being counted from the November 5th general election, Republicans had won 212 seats in the 435-member House, according to projections by Edison Research. Republicans now need to win 6 more seats to keep control of the House. Results of 19 House races remain unclear, mostly in competitive districts in western states where the pace of vote counting is typically slower than in the rest of the country. 10 of the seats are currently held by Republicans and 9 by Democrats. 14 of the seats were widely seen as competitive ahead of the election. From the Hill, Financial Trade Group calls on SEC Chief Gensler to immediately step down. Trump promised he'd fire the Goldman Sachs clown of Wall Street on day one, but it may be coming before then. The American Securities Association, a financial trade group, called on SEC Chair Gensler to immediately resign from his post following the election of President-elect Trump. Quote, "Last night, the people voted for this country to take a new direction, and Gensler should respect that vote by stepping down from his position immediately," ASA President Chris Iacovella wrote in a Wednesday statement. "This is the only way for America's working families, retirement savers, and small businesses to rebuild their trust and confidence in the institution of the SEC," Iacovella added. Yeah, but what about retail? The statement from the ASA, which represents large asset managers, came less than a day after the presidential race was called for Trump, who has pledged to fire Gensler if elected. Gensler has faced backlash for his hardline approach to the cryptocurrency industry, which has gained prominence in Washington since Trump's first term. Yeah, but what about ignoring an avalanche of corruption and manipulation stemming from hedge funds, their prime brokers, and market makers on Wall Street, which have been permitted to run wild and get away with tiny token fines when they're finally detected? I have suffered through you and your predecessor's ridiculous lawsuit against Ripple XRP, which drags on to this day. It's obviously not a security, and still you persist in terrorizing Ripple and the crypto space for no other reason other than you can run around handing out fines in the space so you could bring in cash for Washington, or maybe you've been ordered to protect SWIFT. The article continued. When the president-elect has pledged to fire Gensler from the role, the SEC is an independent federal agency, meaning its commissioners are protected from being removed without cause. The reasoning is supposed to be based on law and policy considerations and not political influence. Trump cannot force Gensler to step down as a commissioner, though he can name a new interim SEC chair once he is inaugurated in January. The former president can also nominate a new commissioner to the Senate, which flipped to Republican control this week, boosting the chances the nomination would be confirmed in the upper chamber. The SEC declined to comment on the ASA's statement. A number of political figures, both in and outside of the crypto world, have called for Gensler's removal in recent years. Gary Gensler's SEC war on crypto is over, ex-SEC official says. From the DL News, the SEC has lost its war on cryptocurrency. U.S. crypto bigwigs expect a friendlier SEC under Donald Trump. Cases against U.S. crypto companies will be scrapped. Crypto in the U.S. is about to be free from its biggest albatross, relentless regulatory enforcement by the Securities and Exchange Commission. That's according to John Reed Stark, a former head of the SEC's Office of Internet Enforcement. In an X Spaces on Thursday, Stark declared an end to the SEC's war on crypto given Donald Trump's victory in the U.S. presidential elections. Robinhood attorney, Republican regulators being considered for Trump financial agency shortlist. Trump is considering Robinhood's Dan Gallagher as SEC head Gary Gensler's replacement. No, 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 not going to happen. Okay, hashtag AMC. You want me to review the earnings call? Didn't listen to it. Bought some calls on Monday in anticipation of some hype. Sold them on Wednesday, made 25% and moved on immediately. Why, you ask? Because I don't trust this piece of shit. Because I know what he is and I know what he's doing. I don't need to debate it because he proves what he is again and again. I don't trade to win arguments. I've already won all those. I'm only interested in making profitable trades, not investment advice or advisor, but I will watch to see if AMC can hold 4. If it does, I may add some, or I may add again if there's a correction and I spot a hard bottom. On Friday, AMC closed at 427, losing 3 cents or 0.70%. Hashtag Archer Aviation. Now that earnings call I did listen to and it was fantastic. Let me show you the difference in strategies of a firm run by entrepreneurs and a firm run by Wall Street executives like AMC. Before Archer's call ever got started, before the open, on a Thursday, before options expiration Friday, the news dropped that Archer got another buy order for their book. JAL Sumitomo secures right to place order for up to 100 Archer Air taxis. And then during the market session, Archer Aviation shares rise after deal for up to $500 million in electric aircraft. And then the call. Archer announces third quarter 2024 results, demonstrating manufacturing, certification, and commercial launch momentum. Then after the call, the CEO posts on LinkedIn. Do you know how many clicks that post has received so far? 363 at the time of this recording. Do you know what that tells me? It indicates that I am very early to this deal, and very few on the street know about this yet. This is not investment advice. I am not an investment advisor. I will never tell you to buy, sell, or hold any security or cryptocurrency, including Archer. But this is how an earnings call strategy is done, boys and girls. Then on Friday, stock closed at 389, up 39 cents or 11.14%. That puts Archer up 19.21% over the past 5 trading sessions. Now, let me compare that earnings call approach to Adam Aarons over at AMC. You see, the people that run Archer are aerospace, software, battery, and mechanical engineers. Their management team and board is filled with people from NASA, a former CEO of United Airlines, a former administrator of the FAA, the global head of business development for Stellantis, the CEO of Strategic Growth Advisors sits on Archer's board, while Adam was a partner at Apollo Global Management, a distressed credit private equity firm for 9 years before joining AMC. Our board is run by an active Morgan Stanley employee. These people aren't Hollywood, theater, or movie executives like over at Cinemark. These people are Wall Street, top to bottom and left to right. A department at Morgan Stanley was caught and fined this year for giving front-running tips on institutional trades to hedge funds, one of them being Citadel. But a man from that same department still runs our board of directors. Now let's go back to AMC's earnings call for Q3 of 2023. This was hands down the best call I've ever listened to. We had the best third quarter in our company's entire history, and that includes the pandemic. Remember, they said we would go bankrupt, but we didn't. Remember, they said we'd never be profitable again, but we were. And then they said we'd never do better than before COVID, but there we were. We beat the narrative again. But then something amazing happened. During the call after hours, word came out that the writer's strike was finally over. This was the most exciting moment for me. I thought the next day we were going to kill the shorts. Adam never mentioned any dilution plans during the call. But then the very next morning, before the bell, he dropped it on us. He killed another rally, this time before it ever even got started. Who knows how much money we could have raised if the stock were allowed to run and we sold at higher prices. But that's not what Wall Street needed, and Adam delivered again. What I remember most about that call is even though we were killing it, even though the strike was over, the after-hours trading was muted, even down. I can only conclude that Wall Street knew what was coming the following morning, but the AMC shareholders didn't. So what's next for Archer Aviation? Well, one thing we can discuss is our new manufacturing plant in Georgia. It's reported to be completed within the next 2 weeks, on schedule and on budget. According to AI, Archer is building a high-volume manufacturing facility in Covington, Georgia, to produce its Midnight electric aircraft. Location? Next to the Covington Municipal Airport. Size? Nearly 400,000 square feet. Capacity? Up to 650 aircraft per year. Completion? Expected in 2024. Aircraft? The Midnight is a 4-passenger aircraft designed for rapid back-to-back flights. Goal? To replace long commutes with electric aircraft flights that are safer, more sustainable, and less noisy. The facility is expected to be one of the largest manufacturing facilities in the aviation industry by volume. Archer is working with Stellantis to produce the Midnight aircraft. Archer selected Georgia for the facility for several reasons, including Georgia has a good pool of talent, its weather is generally good for testing, and Georgia has been willing to help with training, workforce development, and other support. Archer plans to invest $118 million over the next 10 years in the facility. The company also received an incentive package from Georgia that includes land conveyance, tax incentives, and a Georgia REBA grant. My options positions lit up like a Christmas tree on Thursday and Friday for Archer, and I rotated out of some of the near expiration contracts to raise cash. I have to remind myself that this company is pre-revenue and the stock has plenty of enemies on the short side. I'm also concerned the markets are due for a pullback, which could take Archer down with it. So speaking only for myself, I have to watch specific levels to the downside to see where I might add to my positions. Not investment advice or advisor, but I'm going to try to accumulate up to $4 per share and hopefully catch some dips along the way. The coverage of Archer by the financial press has been pretty glowing. Cathie Wood can't stop buying Archer Aviation stock. Should you invest while it's still below $5? Archer Aviation is building electric air taxis and has gained significant interest from commercial airlines and even the U.S. military. With Archer on the cusp of next-generation mobility, Cathie Wood's ARK Invest portfolio has been buying shares. Despite the nod of approval from Wood, Archer still has a lot of work cut out for it, and an investment in the company is not for everyone. On your screen are the best and worst months for the stock market according to seasonal patterns. Take a screenshot or Google that if you want to keep a copy. November has historically been a good month for stocks as the major indices tend to perform favorably heading into the end of the year. November sees stock prices rise a high percentage of the time, and the historical average gain for the month makes it one of the best performing months of the year. But let's also remember, this is not a normal year or month, and the geopolitical and financial atmosphere is far from normal. With the final quadruple witching day for the year coming on December 20th, I wanted to review this information with you. The most important quadruple witching date of the year is considered to be the third Friday of December because it marks the simultaneous expiration of multiple derivative contracts, including stock index futures, stock index options, stock options, and single stock futures, often leading to the highest trading volume and market volatility on that day compared to other quadruple witching dates in March, June, and September. Under the aspect of increased trading volume, expect a surge in trading activity as participants execute numerous trades to adjust their portfolios. Under portfolio adjustments, portfolio managers may rebalance holdings, leading to increased buying or selling of underlying assets. Under the aspect of contract rolling, traders will roll over expiring contracts to the next expiration date, affecting market liquidity and prices. Under the witching hour, the last hour of trading can be highly volatile, with sharp, unpredictable price movements. And under market impact, the overall market can experience temporary distortions in prices due to the high volume of trades. With all that in mind, it might be time for me to watch the VIX again. As I mentioned on the first slide, the VIX got marbleized last week, losing over 31%. With the fourth quadruple witching day coming December 20th, I may track the calls expiring on January 22nd, a date that would cover the final Fed meeting and the final quadruple witching date of the year. January 22nd is also 2 days after President Trump will be inaugurated, so there are multiple occasions I could see a spike in volatility. Now, another reason I'm watching the January calls expiring the 22nd is the debt ceiling problem, which will be reinstated January 1st. Now, if the Republicans get control of both chambers, this won't be as big a problem as it could have been, but stay tuned anyway. Also, let's not forget that the reverse repo balance, a closely watched Fed Reserve facility which gauges the level of excess cash in the financial system, fell to its lowest level in more than 3 years recently. And breaking from the daily hodl, B of A bracing for $800 million loss as investigators probe B of A, JP Morgan Chase, and Wells Fargo's alleged refusal to reimburse its own customers. The second largest U.S. bank by total assets says it's preparing for significant losses due to ongoing regulatory issues. Now you know why Warren Buffett was selling more, by the way. In a new filing with the SEC, B of A says it faces a reasonably possible and estimable loss of up to $800 million due to investigations from the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau and other federal regulators. And here's 3 headlines for you about the short sellers. Donald Trump says he has no plans to sell DJT stock, calls for probe into market manipulators. Donald Trump reiterated he doesn't intend to sell his stock in Trump Media and called for an investigation into short sellers. And then Trump's election win tanked renewable energy stocks and short sellers cashed in. The president-elect's drill baby drill mantra is creating fear in the renewable energy sector. And then Trump Media short sellers lost $420 million after betting against stock before blowout election victory. Glad to hear it. Uncle Frank loves carnitas and celebrating Cinco de Mayo, but this year's holiday will be extra exciting because P. Diddy will stand trial on May 5th on charges of racketeering, conspiracy, sex trafficking, and prostitution if he doesn't get Epsteined first. What makes this extra fun is 8 top A-list celebrities are featured on the Sean Diddy Combs tapes. Remember, Bill Wang is scheduled to be sentenced this month, but breaking from Bloomberg Friday night, Bill Wang's lawyers suggest no prison time in Archegos case. Attorneys cite Wang's age, health, and lifetime of good works. Prosecutors expected to seek significant time behind bars. For my last slide, I wanted to play this short update from the Archer Aviation CEO regarding this past week's earnings call.
Today we announced earnings and had another great quarter, and we're very close to fulfilling our mission of finding the most efficient path to bringing these eVTOL aircraft to market. The first big thing we talked about was we are now building these production aircraft. These are the type design, piloted production aircraft. These are not prototypes. These are not drones. These are not pre-production aircrafts. These are the aircrafts we will use for the commercial launch. So naturally the question becomes, well, where will you launch? Second big thing we talked about was the commercial launch in the UAE. Through a partnership with the Abu Dhabi Investment Office, we now have clarity in a pathway to launch as early as 4Q 2025. We pulled together a consortium of partners across the whole ecosystem to help us do this, and that spans pilot training, maintenance, the infrastructure partners, and a clear regulatory pathway. The third big thing we talked about in earnings was our certification update here in the US. So the FAA has laid out a very clear 4-step process to get through to the type certification process. We are now 100% done with phase 1, 100% done with phase 2. We are almost done with phase 3, and we've made significant progress on phase 4, which is the final implementation phase. And I think that puts us in a really strong leading position to certify here in the US as well. The fourth big update was the new partnership we announced in Japan. Through the combination of a JV formed by Japan Airlines and Sumitomo Corporation, a new entity was formed called Soracle, which Archer partnered with, and they have ordered up to $500 million worth of aircraft to bring Archer and this new entity Soracle to market in Japan. It was a great quarter. Thank you so much. Exciting times here. Can't wait to show everybody what we're building.
Hey, I want to thank you for watching, and please remember to hit the like button after this slide if you enjoyed the presentation. Subscribe to the channel and set the alert so you're notified when I have new information to share. See you at the bell.